Start recording. Here we go, just in case. Huh?
You I have another great link I can share with you all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a compendium of commentary line by line.
Oh my goodness.
2,000 years worth of commentary.
Wow. Wow.
Is there an audiobook?
that's a lot. That's a lot of commentary.
Yeah.
All right, let me get, we are recording? Yeah. I have to.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right. Well, good. We have 2 minutes to start anyway. So I'm gonna cheat, actually. I'm gonna start before Parsha Yitro actually starts.
Oh yeah, to the previous one.
Yeah, I wanted just a little bit.
The recap.
Just a little bit about the previous. Oh my goodness. All right, so one more minute, and then we'll do the blessing and get started. In the meantime, if you want, I'm actually going to light a candle, and I'm going to do it old school. I took a piece of, candle wick thread, from, right? And I just put it through a piece of cardboard, and I'm going to take some safflower oil and pour it in to the little jar, right? So it all mostly floats to the top. As you can all see. Yeah, there you go. There's like a double meniscus there. And this is, when you don't even have, they sell these commercially, right? You float your wick on top, okay? And now, if you want, just because I'm taking up time here, you can also add a little flavoring, right? Like some rose or whatever to your oil, so to your candle for burning for tonight, whatever. And then you light your wick on fire. Let's see if I can. I'm gonna enter. This is a weird lighter. Doesn't always light. I'm gonna have to go get a match. Oh, look at that, a blessing. Oh, I blew it
There
out.
is a God.
Yep. Ah! All right, good enough. Where's that long lighter? All right. There we go. So this is for anybody else. And then you just light your light, like I'm doing. That's good. That's the whole thing. So if you ever want to make yourself, if you don't have a candle and all you have is a piece of thread, now you have a candle. All right? You have some oil. All you have is oil and whatever, and it stinks up the whole room and refreshes, and there you go. You can have whatever scent you want. You can add, lavender or whatever to your oil candles. So now let's wow, people are still coming in. What do you think? Should we say the blessing?
Oh, there's a McLashley. There we go.
Oh yeah, so there we go.
Let's get him settled.
We'll get him settled. Yeah, he was having difficulty, right? Did you admit him?
Yeah, he's in, but he's probably getting set up by Sharon.
Okay, I got it. Is it? It's probably. We're gonna ask him to. I'll ask him to unmute, and then I'll add a pin. Yeah.
And video.
Remember when Dr. Jeremy couldn't light his oil lamp at Parsha, and then Hashem provided him with another lighter, and it lasted the whole Zoom call. We witnessed another miracle. All right, and another miracle. Rabbi McLashley was able to join us, and we've got everybody hooked in. And so welcome to Parsha Yitro, everyone. This is a really interesting Parsha. We'll start with the blessing right off the bat. We'll say that, on Discord and outside of Discord, there's been a lot of texting going on because this Parsha is crazy filled with interesting stuff. Unfortunately, we're going to back it up a little bit because I need to talk about last week's Parsha a little bit. So let's start with the prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher barak rabanu mikol hamim, v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you for giving us the Torah. That's awesome. So before we get into Parsha Yitro, I just want to read one of the last paragraphs of the preceding Parsha because I had all sorts of technical difficulties last week, and everybody stepped in, and there were so many heroes. I appreciate that in Beshalach. So, but there was something that I wanted to point out last week, which is that there's this part where they're going to battle with Amalek, and for those who don't know, Amalek is the embodiment of evil. They are the forever enemies of the Israelites, and God tells them, the Jews, to extinguish them, and they go to battle, and there are paragraphs here that lead us to the idea of Noheg Ladora, which is for all generations, that Amalekites, even though we wiped them out, they're still among us. These are the people who still hold those principles. So like Kanye West or whatever, or whatever, really evil. I'm making a joke, but really evil people. And so we're commanded. This is a group of people that we are actually commanded to curse, which is interesting. And there's two things that I want to point out. One is that it says that we're to strike them out to the point where God will erase the memory of Amalek from under. Hashem says to Moses, write this as a remembrance in the book and recite this in the ears of Joshua, that I shall surely erase the memory of Amalek from under the heavens. Okay, like we're going to wipe these people out. They will never be known. All right, here's the problem I have. The problem I have is here they are right here, and we know about them. So did God not fulfill his promise? That's my question.
Well,
because we know about them.
Is Hashem specifically calling on us to force Hashem to engage with Hashem's limits? That Hashem knows that they would be less of themselves if they fully obliterated the memory of a people. And so has tasked us with remembering that they should have been wiped out, but not actually. And so we have to continue to hold that tension for all the evil people going forward.
Yeah, I know, but it's pretty contrarian because clearly God does not fulfill wiping out the entire everybody's memory of Amalek, right? So it's I just wanted to leave that hanging. There's another part that we can go back to, but it's in this same portion, and we have so much more to get to, which is the fact that in the preceding portion, they're in battle, right? They're in battle, and Moses is like standing off in the corner, okay? And, okay, let's just talk about this for a second. Frank Zappa invented the wave. It took me a long time to know that fact. You know the wave when you're in a stadium and people do this, right? Okay, that whole concept of a huge group of people doing that was actually started by Frank Zappa, who would go to his audiences, and he first did this on one of the TV shows. I think he might have been like his first appearance on Steve Allen or something like that, where he would point to things in the audience and say, you make a noise or stand up or whatever. And he would do it in such a way that it was now coordinated. So if you go on Wikipedia, they actually attribute the invention of that idea of the wave to Zappa. But here it is right here, because what happens is that Moses is standing off in the corner, and every time he raises his hands, the Israelites win the battle, and every time his arms are lowered, right, they start losing the battle. The Amalekites are winning the battle, and so at some point he gets tired of holding his arms up and doing this is hard. It's not easy. That's like boxing. So they put a stone underneath him to rest his arms. Like, what kind of magic is this? This is amazing. To me, this is amazing. So
I'm reading a text from Azaria Bezalel. Very good.
Yes.
Everyone. Azaria Bezalel brings out a
what do they say?
magnificent point. He says that Amalek is remembered. It's mentioned in the Torah, so his name can't be entirely erased. He brings up a good point. So here's the point. It says in the Gemara in Kedushin, Barati Yetzer Hara, Barati Lo Torah Tavlin, that the God created the Yetzer Hara, the evil impulse. God created the evil impulse, and he created the Torah as its antidote. But we say Yetzer, I have to say it in Hebrew, and then I'll translate it in English, Yetzer Mesgaber Alav B'chol Yom, that the Yetzer Hara strengthens itself upon a person each time. So what does this have to do with Amalek? The idea of evil, you can eradicate it for now. You can be what they call Kovesh et Yitro, master the evil impulse for now. But it's an ongoing battle. Because the bottom line is Amalek, so you're saying, well, Amalek, God commanded us to wipe out Amalek, and then we didn't, Amalek's still here. Amalek has to be here, because even though we wipe out Amalek, we do exactly what Hashem says. Amalek has to be here. In other words, it's a situation that, yeah, great, good job, Yeshikoach, way to go. You know what? The battle's not over. That struggle is an essential part of what it means to be an Eved Hashem, a serving.
And this is Noheg Ladoro, right? For all generations.
Lador, Netzach Netzachem, it's going to go on.
Yeah. That's very perceptive. It's a very perceptive point.
Azaria Bezalel, he texted that. He's the one that saw that. I'm just expounding on it, on his text.
Yeah, they did. Yes, and that's a brilliant. It's brilliant observation, and I'm also pointing out to the to make sure that there are new people here, that they understand that what we've been talking about this whole time for the past year is the worry and concern that the Jewish people often have about blotting out names, right? And that this is a real punishment for them, that this whole idea of erasing the name, because this is connected to your Platonic ideal of these things, all right? And so the name, it's holy and they are magical, these names, right? So, and they are words of power, Shemot, right? Shemot, words of power, I would say. Chanting, can probably speak to that. But let's get to Parsha Yitro, which I find also interesting. The very first words are unbelievable. Jethro, the minister of Midian, of course, the minister, he's not a minister. The word that they use, of course, is the word for priest is Cohen. They call him Jethro the Cohen.
Can I can I expound on a little bit of history for
Please.
Yitro? Which I made a joke in Discord that I had 3 pages of notes before I even started verse 1. It's because it's because of the commentary, and it doesn't even say this in the verse, but the on the Chabad Shamash with Rashi, they're talking about how, you know, he's not just some dusty shepherd. Like, he is a priest king, essentially, of Midian. And the reason why he is in Midian is he used to be one of Pharaoh's advisors. He was one of the 3 main advisors, and he stood up for the Jewish people, and he said, don't kill them. And that's why he was cast out of Egypt. And he was so he was one of the most like influential, greatest thinkers of his time. He was a theologian. He was a scholar of idol worship.
A wizard. He was a wizard.
Yeah, there wasn't a single
this is what
idol
Moses-
he had not worshipped, and he came to the conclusion that there was only one God. And so he also has 7 different names. He's known as he's referred to in the Torah with 7 different names, and one of them is Hovav. And when the Vav was added to his name, once he converted, because Vav is 3 in Gematria, and his name before that was 613. So when he converted, he also did the 3 mitzvah to become, or the 3 commandments, which adds on to the 316, I'm sorry, the 613. And so his gematria becomes 616. And so I thought that was really cool. And this is all before we even get started. Verse
And
1.
Paro had 3 advisors, Bilam, Yitro, and Eov. And as Chacham Leah pointed out, Bilam was the one that was considered machshefa. He was an expert in magic and sorcery. Yitro, actually, his area of expertise, if you will, was he knew the type of avoda, the type of worship of every specific deity in the pagan pantheon. And what's interesting, this is really interesting, Yitro was the high priest, as you pointed out, called the Cohen. He wasn't the Cohen in the Jewish sense. Someone pointed out, but I thought Aaron Cohen was the first Cohen. Correct. Aaron Cohen was our first Cohen. But he's called a Cohen because he knew how to. Now, what's really interesting is that to see what Yitro accomplished something that was Moshe Rabbeinu. In other words, he kind of was completing the work of Moshe Rabbeinu. What does this mean? It says, and this is taken from Shimon Bar Yochai, the works of Shimon Bar Yochai, who was a great mystic, a great mystic. And Shimon Bar Yochai wrote, hold on one second. He wrote that, the souls of Klal Yisrael, the souls, the neshamot, are the base of the flame, referring to this is Kabbalah, okay, the flame that shines. We're talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu here, that enlightens the sphera of Malchut. The divine emanation of Malchut represents kingship or kingdom. Through their positive actions, they increase the spiritual light that shines in the world. But when other people of the world, the Ummah Olam, the other nations that aren't Jewish, come and give thanks and bind themselves voluntarily, as Yitro did, to the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then the base of the flame is added to and strengthened. It shines all over his works in one light, and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu reigns supreme in both the Elam Shel Ma'ala, the upper world, and the Elam Shel Mata, the lower world. And it's in this manner that fear and awe from the Holy One, blessed be he, fell on them when they heard that he had got what he had caused in Egypt, all right, at the cross by the Kriyas Yamsuf, by the parting of the sea. So when Yitro, who was the high priest, as Dr. Jeremy points out, he was the Kohen, right? They used the word Kohen. He was the high priest, the Kohen Gadol of other gods came to convert. Then the glory of the Holy One was strengthened and ruled over all. Because why? Because he knew all forms of pagan worship, and he says,
I want to get to this. I want to emphasize this point.
Right. He says, now I know that God is greater than all gods. So
yes, okay, so I want to talk about that in the Hebrew. Okay. All right. Will you read that line in the Hebrew? That is verse, for everybody here, that is chapter 18, verse 11. Now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods for in this very matter, but the Egyptians, blah, 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 blah. So, okay. So can you just that first part in the Hebrew, Rabbi McLashley?
Sure. Well, I don't have the Hebrew. They have it in the English here. I don't have the Hebrew in front of me.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I think it uses the word Elohim most likely.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So that's the point. The point is it says Adonai is greater than all of the Elohim. Okay. So it's you. So right. There's my daughter has been asking me recently. There's supposed to be only one God, and I don't know, and they're telling me that all the other gods are false gods. When I go to temple, but Dad, I know that what you've said is that God acknowledges the presence and existence of other gods, and that He says it's because I'm a jealous God. So this past week we've been, I've been texting back and forth with her, like various passages where there is an acknowledgement of this issue that there are other gods present, and that Yahweh is just the most powerful, and then stretches out to be the all-encompassing, and we fold them all in, right? So now I know that yes, and it's uses the Yud K Vav K, if you want to say Adonai is greater than all of the other Elohim. It says Elohim. It says God.
Yeah.
Now you know how I reconcile that with being an Orthodox rabbi? How I reconcile it?
How?
Well, in my neck of the woods, I mean, it's a situation that we hold strictly that God is alone and no other gods exist. Ein lanu melech ela ata, ein od milvado. There's none other. Now, clearly the Torah, as you point out, Dr. Jeremy, references exactly what you're saying. How do you get around it? So here's my way of reconciling it, which I'm not saying is the way. Everyone has their own perspective, and I can only tell you this is my perspective. I can't tell you that this is correct, incorrect. I can't even bring a source to back my supposition or my hypothesis up with. But here, the concept, what you're dealing with is there is only, think of the Matrix, there's only one programmer, divine programmer, that programs and structures the megaverse, the omniverse, the multiverse, all different dimensions, spheres of existence, and what have you. But we conceptualize the divine realm in different ways. Hindus conceptualize it in one way. The ancient pagans, the Druids conceptualized it a different way. And all of the different religions at the time of Yitro, they all had their concept. The Egyptian Book of the Dead, they had their concept of what gods were in charge of the underworld. What God. So here's the situation. These are concepts. What we're saying is, you know what? All of these concepts express an aspect of God. In all of these other gods, all right, you look at ancient pagan Dionysus or Aphrodite or Zeus or Apollo, they all express an aspect of the one God. And the thing is that what they're doing is they're taking the unity of one God, and instead of thinking of it as a unity, they're thinking of it as separate.
They're distributing it amongst, like delegations.
So what we're saying is that that the concept of God that we have is greater than all of these other concepts, because it embraces and encompasses all of these concepts and transcends them at the same time. That's the way I reconcile it.
Yeah, I think any black box used to reconcile this paradox is fine with me. I like, to me, I just say like it's a paradox, and I accept it.
Yeah,
But
my take is that if Hashem is infinite and all things, if it is like all powerful and omnipresent, it is both and. So in order for Hashem to be infinitely powerful and omnipresent, it has to be paradox, the embodiment of an enigma wrapped in a paradox. So Hashem is solitary and is all the other gods.
yeah, I don't have a problem.
An enigma wrapped in a paradox. I mean, now I'm going to learn Torah from Pirates of Penzance.
I mean, like I've said it before, it's just not that hard to resolve. Like, things can be two opposing ways, at the same time, right? I mean, you just have to live with the fact that light is a particle and it's a wave, and sometimes both, and sometimes it's neither. Like, just get it. But
the double foot experiment shows that in the way we perceive it.
Yeah, right. So it's not a problem for me. I've like moved on. Oh, wait. I'm sorry. Also, I need to interject something totally irrelevant to this particular conversation, but I want. But it does speak to the greater relevance. Does anyone here know what a Scytale is? I believe it's called a Scytale. Scytale or Scytale? Anyone? Well, all right. So I'm gonna tell you. It's I just ran across this. And it's because we were having a discussion in Discord about tefillin that I bring it up, okay? It is a method of coding something, all right? And you know how much we Jews love to play with our codes, right? Our gematria, our Akbar, what's the one that, Akbash and Albam and all of the different codes, and okay. So this code it was originally used a leather strap that was wrapped around an object of a certain size, usually a cylinder that was uniform. And what you did was you wrapped it around, and then you wrote on it, okay, the letters, and then and you wrote your message exactly how you wanted it, okay, and then you would take the strap and send it across to the other team that you needed to get the secret message to, and they would have hopefully the key, which was, it had to be, of course, a cylinder of the exact same size. Otherwise, the letters don't line up and the cipher is null and void. It just makes no sense. So the key is like, you have to have this other additional piece of information, right? And of course, you could indeed do the same process with something that is tapered or misshapen in some fashion. And it occurred to me that this is something that I needed to look into further. And so that's why I brought it up here and started off asking if anybody had heard of this before, because I was hoping maybe there's another expert out here in ciphers and codes. And the idea, I believe, though, I had to look up the idea of writing on the underside of tefillin, I believe, technically renders it possible.
Yeah.
But I don't think it. It says it in the Shulchan Aruch, and it says it in the Mishnah that we can't alter the straps in any. It doesn't say it explicitly. I looked it up. It says we shouldn't alter the straps in any way that could affect their validity, which is a way of saying if it affects their validity, then you shouldn't do it. But I don't know that writing holy names on it, like let's say you wrote a series of the honorifics of God, that would that render it possible? Would that render it I don't know. Can you decorate your tefillin in a holy manner?
The Shulchan Aruch, I mean, anything that you add to the tefillin, if you inscribe anything on the ritzur of the straps,
Mm-hmm.
you decorate them in any way or alter them in any way, it renders them pasul, ritually.
Yes, but the words that it used is in any way that could affect their validity.
Right.
So does that? It doesn't say in any way. It says in a way that makes them void. Like you wouldn't want to write, something foul and obscene.
No, I understand.
But
if you're using shemos of Hashem, the names of Hashem, of the names of God, or something like that.
Yes, why would that render it any less?
My fellow rabbis have a problem with the fact that I dyed my tefillin green, so I don't know. I mean.
No, I mean, that is another. Does anybody know if it says the construction has to be black?
This is Baal Peh. This is all Torah Baal Peh. As I was talking with you outside the Zoom group one time, I was showing you things Ibn Ezra and many other of the Chachamim really held that tefillin were. Some of them considered it metaphorical. The earliest example of tefillin only goes back to, I believe, the 1st or 2nd century. Only goes back to the 1st or 2nd, the first recorded example of tefillin, the first existing tefillin that we have. So much of what we have tefillin is never described in the Torah Shebechtav, the written Torah. It's never described how to make it. It just says it'll be a sign on your a sign between your eyes and upon your heart. But it never gives you the specifics on how to make it. Which
but they have them. They found tefillin in the Qumran caves at the Dead Sea Scrolls. They found actual tefillin. They're not like the ones we have there.
Not at
two
all.
Pieces of leather folded in half with the little scrolls in them.
Exactly.
That were worn over their forehead. They were not the boxes.
No. It was in the style that commonly amulets were made in that time. Amulets that would be bound to the body.
Yeah. So it's the Shulchan Aruch is a late work. I mean, it's a very late work, and so I think it means up until that time. To me, I mean, all right, now going forward, people have done it since that time, maybe in this particular way, but obviously there's variety.
I think Spencer has a question here. Guys, it has his hands up for a while.
Spencer,
now.
Okay, yes. Also, some of the phylacteries used in the PGM. Yes. Wait, you can unmute yourself. We don't have.
Yes. So, regarding the tefillin, I know the Karaites tend to say that it's a metaphor for remaining mindful of Hashem. Just
right. That it's a metaphor. That's right.
Like a mezuzah.
Right. But I know that, like in the Greek magical papyri, for instance, there's spells that call for one to put, a phylactery, maybe a cloth or a piece of paper, around the forehead.
Absolutely, and in the book of Abramelin does that too. Right, which is a Jewish grimoire, medieval grimoire.
Exactly.
So it's yes, and in the Talmud, there's examples of magical tefillin all over the place.
All over, yeah.
All over the place. There's tefillin that turn into doves, right? So, yeah.
I had a question for Rav McLashley though, with because I'm thinking along similar lines, and I was thinking about it like. In terms of the Kabbalah, if Hashem is Ein Sof, right? His essence is we can't say anything about it, you know, because it's everything and nothing and beyond nothing and beyond infinity, right? So in that sense, you could say then that all the other Elohim, all the other gods are like, if you were to isolate a part of that code and you just had like 101010 and that was it, it's still part of that code, right? Which in this case, the code would be Hashem, but it's not the entirety of the code. But you can't say it's not the code.
You can't say it's not the code.
Right.
So what you're saying, what you're saying is spot on.
That's a very good analogy.
Because it's a very good analogy because it is part of the code. Think of it like human DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid. Think of it human DNA. You have a single chromosome that's part of the DNA, but you can't from that single chromosome. Dr. Jeremy will help me out on this one. But from that single chromosome, you couldn't reconstruct the DNA, though.
Well, yeah, I mean, so you're yes, yeah. So exactly, and I think you're also right on in the sense that Judaism. I've been reading Shemush Tehillim, right? The Kabbalistic work on the Psalms, on Psalmic magic, and there are so many, you know, of these names of God, and both the names and clearly specific angels, right, are associated with different various aspects of God. And you could say that other culture, and they are valid aspects of God. Like you have, you know, Raphael is and Channing, I think, would agree that, right? So you've got this 3 letters, you know, Resh, right? Pei, and Lam, you know, what's the third one for Rof, for, you know, and Yud, you know, is for like healing, which is why he's the God, he's the angel of healing, El, right? And which means he's of God. So he's the minister of healing. But, you know, we refer to God, when we took the God of healing, we might refer to, you know, Adonai, Rophea, right? Which has the same 3-letter, you know, root, which, you know, Channing's going to talk all, I know, I'm trying to like, and so, but these are all valid aspects of God, and they could, if you worship them individually, right, represent, like, you know, an idol or teraphim of the God of healing, and just, you know, and that's what we call this particular angel or aspect of God, blah, right? It's very analogous, and you can then say our God is all of these gods, and that's why they include, you know, whatever, Buddha and this religion's gods and that religion's gods, because those, we're all talking about, you know, these, you know, the God of fertility. We're all talking about that aspect, right? We're talking about the God, you know, the divine feminine. We're talking about that aspect, the Shekhinah. We're talking about, you know, we all have it. So,
and another way, let me go here. The way I explain it to people that ask me, I say, well, look, the idea of the oneness of God is fundamental in Judaism. I mean, it's the Shema. You know, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. Thing of this is that, think of it like this. All of the names of the Malachim, of the angels, end with the name of God. Gabriel.
well, not all of them.
Topkiel, Raziel.
Yes, right. Okay, so, you know, Satan. Okay, that's an angel. Hamavet. Okay.
But wait a minute, another name for the Satan was the Samayat.
Metatron.
The Metatron is an example.
Okay, there's a couple,
yeah.
but you're right. The vast majority. I'm gonna give you the vast majority.
But what you say is like, look, if I say, okay, I'm painting a picture, and then after I finish painting, I go out and I play football. Well, my concept of football is soccer. Okay, I kick a ball. So they'd say, okay, you wouldn't say Rabbi McLashley, his foot went out and kicked the ball, and his hand painted a picture, and then he went outside and his foot kicked the ball. You wouldn't attribute, you'd say, all of these extensions of myself, these appendages, whether I use my hand, my foot, my tuchus, whatever I use, okay, it's all me doing it. And that's the way I understand. That's the way I understand the whole situation. The malach, Hashem doing it. It's just doing it through his, metaphorically speaking, appendages.
I agree with you. Well, let's get back to the Parsha. What?
Should we head up to Mount Sinai?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Let's get back to the Parsha.
Speaking of this mountain, speaking of this mountain, I've noticed that they call the mountain Elohim in several places.
Well, he's about to possess it, essentially, and electrify it and become the mountain
twice.
He's like, don't touch it. Everybody back up the mountain. But if you touch it, if you lay a hand on it, you're going to perish.
Yes, but there's several layers here where they start off at the mountain, and then it goes to, they travel to the mountain, but they're already at the mountain. And then it says that Israel came and ate bread with Moshe, father-in-law, before the presence of Elohim. It's the presence of, but they're talking about the mountain Elohim.
Yes.
Because Elohim also has a connotation of a place where these mystical spirits live. And the name of the mountain and the name of the gods. So it's, and also notice how they switch. I mean, you can totally see the layers here by how often they switch from Elohim, Yud-He, Vav-He, and the feminine Eloha.
Okay, so what's Channing? Wait, I don't think everybody knows what you mean when you say the layers. So what Channing is getting at is I'm sorry, pardon?
I can explain that. It's really easy. Is that they found that if you were reading a book of Shakespeare and every few paragraphs there's all of a sudden a word in modern English in there, you would say, okay, this wasn't all written in Shakespearean time because of the new additions and layers which were added. The oldest layer is called the E layer, the Elohim layer, because they used the term Elohim. And it was thought to be written in the northern kingdom of Ephraim, around the, was it like 800, 900, 800 BCE. And then the next layer was added a couple of centuries later in the southern kingdom of Judea.
Yeah, and so just to summarize, the Torah was written and it's over periods of time with various parts added and subtract some edits here and there. And this is part of the Open Siddur project. I just put that link in the chat. And what they have done is they've gone through the Torah and they've color coded which areas come from which time periods. And if you only read like the early stuff, that's an interesting view. And if you only read, if you read the early stuff plus the later, that gives you a different perspective, right? So they're and so what Channing is saying is this is a lot of this part was written in a particular time period where they're referring to God in this particular phraseology, right, Channing? Is that a summary of what?
But it's also it's also very similar to the Talmud. There is the Babylonian Talmud and there's the Yerushalayim Talmud.
Yes.
They're both the same. They just very different and they borrow from each other. And and it's very similar. What we have left, or what was left extant, is a combination of the two.
Yes, that's true. So it's very complicated, and it's what makes I think everyone here have these really great questions, like the one about, I know there's a question about this word nashim eagle and wings and griffin vultures.
Yes, which is great if you actually dig into the roots of these words.
So should we talk about that?
Sure. That was what was that? That was oh, what was that? Was that 18?
The 1904.
What Hakam Leah? What was it?
1904. Okay.
I think, yeah, 19. Yeah.
19 what?
1904.
4.
1904.
Okay, so all right. So here, it depends. Now, this is you'll all find this very interesting if you go to 1904. Firstly, I want to point out. Wait a minute. First thing, okay, I want to point out that this parsha is named Yitro. Okay, it's named after a non-Jew. And what happens during this parsha? The Jews are given the 10 commandments, like the most pivotal thing that happens. And this parsha is not named the 10 commandments. It's named after a non-Jew.
Well, this
Also-
is when they're given the Torah too. Like God spoke all the commandments in one utterance.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. We'll also notice that there was additions that made Yitro actually bow down and become a Yahwehist
Oh yeah.
as almost a way to legitimize Moshe's marriage to his daughter.
Oh.
So there's
Oh.
like a but on this eagle's wings things.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Eagle's wings. So if you look at it in the English, it depends on what you see written in the English in everybody's books. Okay, was going to vary greatly. And Leah noticed today she was reading hers, and it has this odd line about 19 where about Moshe.
it's Hashem. Well, I was reading two versions. One is Hashem saying, "I have borne you on the wings of an eagle and brought you to me." That's in the Stone edition.
Born you, right? So Hashem is talking to Moses, and says, "I have borne you." And then in your other translation,
the other one said, "I've carried you on the wings of a griffin vulture," which is a carrion, feeder. Like it's a completely different bird. What are you talking about? Like why does this happen? And then Channing found the root of this.
Well, we were
Nesher.
Yes, Nesher.
Nesher is an Assyrian loan word. According to the BDB, the Nesher is a loan word, and it means both eagle, vulture, and griffin vulture.
Okay, then I have a question.
It's kind of used interchangeably, but what I think is more interesting is the word right before it.
Okay,
and that is because it says it's not eagle's wings. The wings is actually another meaning is extremity or like a corner of a skirt or garment. So this is, and it's using Eloha, the feminine of the god.
It's using the feminine of the gods.
Connotations that the god is carrying them around on like their apron, like the mother, the children are hanging on to the corner of their mother's apron or dress as they're being dragged out of, it's like it's carrying the children. It is a feminine mother earth kind of, I'm bearing you on my wings, not my wings, but my apron, the edges of my apron. You're kind of hanging on as I'm dragging you from the kitchen.
All right, so
mothering.
All right, so I love this point, and I want to get back to it, but I still have a question about Nashim, right? Not Nashim, Nesher, which is Nesherim is the word that eagles is what is plural that using, because I've been you too. I know that you do Duolingo, and I know that one of the very first words that they teach you is eagle. So when I came across that word, I knew the word, okay, as eagle. And so today I was like, all right, so let's go. I need to figure out whether or not this thing is an eagle or it's a vulture. And you're just told me that it's a loan word and that because eagles and it could mean both, right? But so I had looked up during the day whether or not eagles existed in the Levant at the time of Moses, and they did, and whether or not vultures existed at the time of Moses, and they did, and specifically griffin vultures do. Okay, all right. But also, I looked up whether or not there's a specific word for vulture and whether or not that was used in the Torah at any other parts. And in fact, the answer is yes. Let me see if I can find it. It's a different word, and it's, well, I should know it. It causes me some consternation in its own right. It's the word ayah. And the reason, which is Aleph, Yud, Hey, and this appears in Leviticus and then in Deuteronomy when Deuteronomy is doing that thing where it quotes Leviticus, and it lists the unclean birds, and then again it's only seen one other place in Job, and so in Leviticus it's listing the dietary bird, the birds that are not allowed, that are not kosher, the eagle, the ossifrage, the osprey, and the vulture, ayah. So it depends on, I guess, the part of
also
when it was written.
But you missed one spot, because also according to the BDB dictionary, it's actually used in Jeremiah to describe how the Babylonian and Assyrian invaders are coming in.
Okay.
So that they're
Like
the invaders are coming in, like swooping in. It's using the same word of this eagle.
So it's okay.
It's describing them as like almost like an adjective.
So I really think a better translation of this word is eagle than vulture, even though, right? And so that causes me a puzzle as to why someone from Chabad would choose to interpret it as Chacham Leah pointed out, as a griffin vulture, which is a scavenger bird, not very regal, kind of ugly looking. I know I get that subjective. Like over eagle, it seems so weird, especially since Rashi, she points also out that calls it an eagle. So and let me just throw in there, and I'm just gonna like pull the pin and then like throw the grenade in and have you guys go have at it. This word for vulture really bothers me, because after having read Shimush Tehillim and these holy names of God that are used over and over and over and over and over, to see Aleph, Yud, Hey, Ayah, Yah, Ayah, Ayah, to see that used as a vulture is just like, I've been seeing that as holy names all day. It's just of all. What's going on here? Anyone? Oh, someone asked. You asked. Is the scavenging nature of the vulture hearkening to the mixed multitude that was carried out of Egypt?
That's an interesting point, because it's a raptor. What all these three, the Tzara Shava, the common denominator between all the translations, is you're dealing with a bird of prey, and it's an interesting point she brings up, because who were the Erev Rav, that they were kind of like preying on, that they were kind of like what should you say? There was a negative element in the Erev Rav.
Well,
a predatory, what you'd call like a predator, a bird of prey. And so
Yeah, this is why they're not kosher, right? I
Right.
mean,
Not kosher.
because they're an evil bird, and so
they're not kosher. And the Erev Rav were not kosher.
yeah. So to me, it's also because it's a not kosher bird. It's a really odd use of the
Right.
whole thing about
The root.
God telling them I'm like a not kosher bird.
Yeah, well, the root.
I think actually speaks the non-kosher element is what's speaking to me. That it is this mixed multitude, and that Hashem is taking this mix of kosher and non-kosher and forming us into a holy people
Oh.
by this covenant.
Well, yeah,
Hashem is acting as a scavenger, gathering this mixture, this chaotic mix, this great mixture, this great mixing to this mountain, which continues to this day. We are still a people of a great mixture.
Oh
of
yeah.
men, like favorite hobby is arguing with each other.
Her point brings us back to the whole Parsha of Yitro, what you just said, the idea of mixing Kedusha, the holy and the unholy, the holy and the profane. What did Yitro do? Yitro was he practiced every type of idolatry known. He was steeped in what you call tumah, the spiritually impure, and what he did is he elevated it. He saw it and he came and he accepted, he was makabel alav ol malchut shemayim, accepted upon himself the yoke of the kingship of heaven, and he took all of these the negative, the whole, the profane, and he elevated it. There's an interesting thing, because Yitro was of course he was a ger. He converted to Judaism, and Yitro, the greatness of Yitro, it says in Tanchum Alech Lecha, it says that the ger tzedek, the righteous convert who comes to be makabel alav ol malchut shemayim, accept upon himself the yoke of the kingship of heaven, is higher than someone who's born Jewish. So how do you understand this? The thing it says is that it says that Hashem suspended a mountain over the head of Klal Yisrael. Okay, he has suspended a mountain. Whatever this means. They said not a seven ishma, because God had it in mind that, look, this is going to be my chosen people. Okay, fine, accept it, great. Don't accept it, I have no use for this world. But Yitro, there's a midrash. When he saw the Kriyas Yamsuf, the parting of the sea, and then he saw the Mitzrim drowning, the Egyptians drowning, when it came together, he saw them drowning. There is in the Chumash, it says that his skin, I think the Rashi brings it down, if I'm not mistaken. I think Rashi,
prickles. They say he gets
exactly,
goose flesh.
the goose flesh,
Yeah.
the rash or what have you. He broke out. So because
he felt bad for them.
Exactly,
And he rejoiced for them.
Even though he was Jewish, he still felt bad. And you know what? He was right, because it says that the Bnei Yisrael started singing Zemira, and the Midrash says that Hashem rebuked them, saying, "No, my children are drowning. Don't sing about this. This is something I have to do, but this isn't, this isn't deserving of a celebration." Now, Yitro, the Midrash brings down that something very interesting happened. That because Yitro was after when the miraculous food that sustained the Jewish people in the wilderness, Hashem wanted to show, Yitro was always wondering, well, where would I stand? Am I really equal to the other, And he had a question. So Hashem, to be Makayim, his own mitzvah of the Ahavta et Hager, to give the convert even an extra measure of honor and recognition, actually caused a portion of man to miraculously appear just before Yitro. Okay? Not only that, but the type of man that appeared before Yitro was the type that was reserved only for the most righteous, the tzaddikim. Because the man, when it descended, it would have a different quality depending if a person was a Rasha, a Beinoni.
Oh yeah.
And if a person was wicked, it would be coarse, and it would have to be ground up, and it would.
Right. I think this is, you can find a lot of this stuff written in Louis Ginsburg's Legends of the Jews, that series. That's a fantastic series that I keep talking about. Yes, yeah, it tasted different. It's
So
the
Yitro's
children,
one
to
was
the
the
elderly.
for the best of the best, the cream de la crop, and it appeared right in front of him.
Fascinating.
I find it's really interesting. There's just so much to take. We haven't even gotten in of how, if you're looking at these various different layers, there actually only starts with 7 commandments or 7 interdictions that they all start with "you shall not."
We can, yes, but we can go over.
And then
tonight.
others were added later.
Well, is that why there's 7 Noahide laws?
Yeah, well, there's 7 interdictions, the 7 Noahide laws, and then they add the positive commandments.
Yes.
So first the negative, and then the positive were added at a later time. But also, it's very interesting that this translation that what's it, 24? You are not to bow down to them. You are not to serve them. For I, Yud He Vav He, your Eloha, the feminine god, am a jealous elf.
Yes. Well, you see that this is this section. If you read the Open Siddur section, it uses that feminine god all the time.
Well, that's what it actually says in the Hebrew. That
I know.
Gets translated later as like,
it's in this
for
layer.
I, God, am your God and a jealous God, when it's like actually using like 4 different names that switch gender back and forth.
Yeah, that's a very interesting, but then when it's calling the mountain, it uses Elohim, and
Yes.
I think that's the same layer, though.
Yeah,
I think that's in the same layer.
mm-hmm. And
Am I wrong?
No, I believe you're right. But in 26, it says you're not to take up the name of Yud He Vav He, which is the Yud He Vav He is actually added in.
Right.
Because the original says you're not supposed to take up the name of your Eluha for emptiness. For Yud He Vav He, not clear him that takes up his name for emptiness. And it's emptiness is the Hebrew, the more direct translation, but it's not in any of the other translations as emptiness. It really taken in vain is the translation that most people taking Hashem's name in vain is actually the literal translation would be taken up for emptiness.
Yes, right. So what that so I have questions about that. It's the intimation and don't take the Lord's name in vain. I always, as a kid, didn't understand. I never even understood what are they talking about, taking something in vain. What does that even mean? Like, isn't vanity narcissism? And then I've learned that it means it comes to mean for nothingness, right? For no reason at all, for no good reason.
Yes, taking the name in vain was actually came from the fact that it was translated from the German, which was translated from the Latin, which was translated from the Greek, which was translated from the Hebrew. By the time we got to English, after that game of telephone, it became vain instead of emptiness.
Right. And as a kid, I didn't understand that exactly. But what that meant, only as an adult did I understand that means for no good reason. And I think what you're alluding to, right, for emptiness was what it means. Don't say the name for no, right, emptiness. Am I correct?
Yeah, no, it's interesting that.
Right. So if you say for the name, it has to be with purpose, right?
Yes,
which means
exactly.
that impetration is approved, right? To say, God help me, I'm dying, I'm drowning, is perfectly legitimate, right? And this is part of spellcraft and prayercraft, right? Which we'll be discussing at the Jewish
Kavanah.
festival.
The name has to be said with kavanah.
Exactly, with
Right,
intent,
intent.
with purpose. Exactly.
Not just like, oh God, what a day.
But
No.
yeah. Right. It has to be said during an impetration or for a gratitude as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one last thing I want to add, because I know we're almost out of time, is in this we have
go over.
Yitro. In this we have Yitro, who actually talks about how to govern. And there are two actual layers of governing. One is this tribal form of governance that Yitro was talking about, as in making sure that all the politicians don't actually want to be politicians, because those are the only ones who will be good politicians, are the ones who don't want it.
Yeah.
You know, they have to hate personal gain.
Yeah.
You can only have politicians that hate personal gain.
Right. It hates money. Yeah. Right.
And these were the elders. And then it adds this other layer, which then says, and we will be a nation of priests, which was added later, not a nation of tribal elders who are wise, which was the original, what Yitro was saying. But then it gets added later when it becomes the Southern Kingdom is writing, and they are a kingdom of priests. They add in this legitimization of their own form of government.
Okay. All right. I got you.
Yitro created bureaucrats. He was the one that told Moshe Rabbeinu, you know, hey, this is too much for you to handle by yourself. You got to allocate it. And
yeah.
As Azariah said, a multi-level marketing genius.
Yeah, he created bureaucrats. Yitro was the one that basically turned it into a bureaucracy. Said you have to allocate it, because he said, Moshe Rabbeinu, this is too much for you to deal with. So what you deal with, you have judges, and shelf them, and then these judges, if it's too difficult, they can go upper tier to the more knowledgeable judges. If they can't answer the question, they go up to the more, and then if necessary, it comes to you. That way, only the most difficult questions, only the hardest shilas are going to be brought to you, and you're not going to be wearing yourself out all day with,
And this is where we get the 70 judges.
Right.
Because in Talmud, you're supposed to have 70 judges. And this is the actual the piece of 1,000, piece of 100, piece of... this is where they get the number 70.
Sanhedrin, yeah. The Sanhedrin.
Where is it?
Is
it in Talmud, or is it in the Zohar that part of Moses's choosing process is to look at their faces and their palms?
I think it's Zohar.
I think that's the Zohar. Yeah.
Parts of it's called. You could look at a person's face and deduce their
count, their piousness, and all sorts of character readings and features. So the Zohar, I think, has a section for both of that. Yeah. Yes.
What's interesting, Moshe Rabbeinu, it had the face, the panim, the face. His face was that of a ritzach, of a killer, of a murderer. And I forgot where the source was for this, but he had the face of a murderer. You remember he killed the Egyptian, right? In defending the... But what he did is he took that teva and he channeled it he channeled it positively to serve God.
Well, in some of the Halot literature, Moses kills an angel.
Yeah.
Travels to heaven. He's in the celestial realms, and he has to kill an angel.
Yeah.
To get to the inner sanctum.
Also, it's interesting how they're talking about this. Is like a really early discussion about holiness or purity. Not the purity that, the Christian idea of purity, but this process of being clean and not having germs or
the purification process that they talk about is the 3-day thing before that they in this section. So that you see that again in the Hekalo and Merkava literature over and over and over again as a purification, and also it's also in the book of Abramelech, as one of the as part of the Abramelech operation. It's dressing in white, right? Having clean clothes. Here it says wash the clothes, but generally in later Jewish tradition, the clothes had to be brand new.
Yes, but also they're instructing all the men to edge for Hashem.
To stay
Stay away from the woman because we want you to be hot and horny.
Exactly. It's like for the big game.
As a cypher artist, I want to lift up the ritual power of the labor that would go into making new clothing for something.
Yeah, good one.
Like there is a lot of meditative work.
Oh yeah.
From thread to to woven to sewing.
Absolutely. There's an enormous amount of meditative. You're on the nose.
To make ritual garments. I mean, the laws for making tzitzit alone are like 10 pages. Just for the
What do you know about making tzitzit?
I make tzitzit.
What you want? For who?
Well, I'm making you a pair, but I've also done them for the tzitzit.
Channing is kind enough to make me. We got the actual purple. We actually got the purple stuff.
Pellet.
Yes, and he's kind enough to make me a pick. Yes, the actual purple blue. Yes. So I'm gonna have a cool set of tzitzit.
Yeah.
I hope you'll give us the
Can I commission a set?
Well,
we'll have his and hers.
Yeah. Well, there might be enough dye to do both.
No. There's
one more thing is at 1924. Hashem is talking about themselves in the third person.
Oh, say again. What section? 1924.
1924. Hashem said to him, "Go get down and then come up, you and Aaron with you. But the priests and the people must not break through to go up to Hashem, lest he burst out against them." This is Hashem speaking. And he's talking about himself in the third person.
Yeah.
Like a narcissist.
He's breaking the third wall, or isn't that what it is?
Well, or like an entity who knows that they don't have control over that lashing out. That it's not I'm going to turn and be angry and punch you. It's the consequence of your interaction with me without, all of this preparation will just happen.
Yeah,
I can't consciously choose to turn off the smiting feature. Like you just have to be aware that
you
it's
won't
gonna
like me when I'm angry.
For
I have no
this
control over
it's a risk.
Yeah, I have no control over that electric fence around the base of the mountain.
Stop making me hate
It's on.
you.
Sorry. But it's like, he said, lest he burst out against you. Who is he? Himself?
Yeah.
Or he is, I don't know. But I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's fascinating phraseology.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing about the mountain, don't touch the mountain. I had not read that before. And I was just like, oh my God, this is incredible. And
they actually had to put for herding animals. Like
yeah,
you put up a fence around
it's like
animals.
Whatever happens, touch me, you die. It's like for everything.
And also the last thing is here, as an artist, I make work that represent things. And this last bit here, is it 23? 23 has been used to suppress any kind of artwork, an art form. There's like a very little actual art from the ancestral tradition because they were afraid to break this. And as an artist, I've had to wrestle with this because they're talking about you don't make any carved image or any figure that is of the heavens above or that is on the earth beneath, that is in the waters beneath the earth. You're not to bow down to them. You're not to serve them, for Hashem, your feminine god, is a jealous god.
Yeah, so I, as a child, wrestled with that, the fact that that's what I had heard too. And it's always what I heard Mark Chagall always did, his figures in a fucked up fashion because he doesn't want to make it like exactly like the,
wabi sabi.
Yeah, because right. So you draw an extra finger or whatever because it's not a real thing, right? And then you've squeaked out of that. And then I always was like, okay, well, if that's the rule, why the fuck do we have? Why do we have the hand at the end of a yod, right? Which is I'm like, there's the rabbi. He's telling me that we shouldn't make any images of body parts, and he's like shaking the yod at me, pointing at the verse, with the yod, at this verse. So I was like totally confused as a kid.
Well, the thing with the images, though, that what they would do is that if the image is incomplete in some way, then it's kosher. For example, if you want to do a picture of a thing of a bird, you leave a part of it out, so it's not an actual duplication of the bird. You like
that's why Mark Chagall did his right. Yeah.
So with the yod, it's a yod, but it's not a full.
That's what they told me. They were like, you could do parts, but
Yeah. Well, also there's the Hasmonean dynasty, the Maccabees, if you were probably the most extremist rendition of Judaism, and they had coins with images on them.
But the point it's only a two-dimensional image. A graven image, it gets into a situation because a graven image, you point out something interesting, but a coin by its very nature cannot be a representation of the full entity because it's two-dimensional, you see. You can't represent, like, I can't do a complete duplication of, let's say, a bust of your head just with that. But the thing is that since they say you can do a portion, my question would be, well, wait a minute. The bust of a head is not a full representation of the person. So you could go there too and say, how is that a graven image? It all depends on how you want to define what a graven, what a tselem is.
Yeah. Well, I'm loving this a lot, but I actually have to go or my spouse will smite me.
Well, have a wonderful evening. I'm going to stay
a pleasure.
Just a little bit longer because I have to ask Rabbi McClashley this question next.
I'll have to watch it later, the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
But Channing, I always love hearing I tell you, you bring out really interesting and things that I'm not familiar that are esoteric. So I love your what you have to bring to the table. It's just,
I'm glad I can bring it to the table. I've been in other.
You have to come back over to the restaurant, bring it to my table. We can sit and talk. And also, the restaurant, Rabbi Menachem wants to talk to you, and then Tal Glickman wants to see those Sforim that you brought that day. If you can bring, he would love to see them. The owner of the
restaurant. Well, I think this. I've been to a number of Parsha classes, and I think this is one of my favorites. It is at a level, an advanced level that I have not seen in a lot of other places. where you can actually dig into these things, you know. So yeah, no, I'm just happy to be here to have this community to really get into the nitty gritties.
Yeah.
Well,
We're,
thank
We
you.
love you
we're
all.
fortunate.
Shalom all.
All right. Well, then I have a question for the rabbi.
All right.
All right. All right. So yeah, I think you were making the point about carving being the issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so, you know, uh, you know, this was very useful for us, this type of artwork, to learn from, right?
Of course.
So these are all wax images from the wax creations made by wax made from wax in the 17th or 18th century, I think, which was very cool. And they were incredibly anatomically correct. I'm just gonna show them because it's just so darn cool. And that would be a forbidden art, I think, except for the fact that it probably would be accepted under the auspices of the fact that it is for the purpose of medical learning and to save a life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, like I said, the whole issue of what constitutes a graven image, there are different opinions on it, and there's a consensus. I mean, there are famous Shomer Mitzvot Jewish artists, and the thing is that abstract art. The issue seems to be to emulate or to duplicate the creation of something in its entirety. So essentially, that would be a graven image. My question is with the Aaron, with the Ark of the Covenant, the Aron HaKodesh, they had the cherubim and the seraphim, right? The figures that were on the Aron HaKodesh, by the Ark of the Covenant, you had the cherubim, how do you say it in English?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
right, the cherubim and the teraphim.
Yeah.
And the seraphim, I mean, I'm sorry, the cherubim and the seraphim. Those weren't graven images. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think some of the translations that I have been reading, and I've been reading some of that same sort of analysis, as Channing in preparation for this, it really seems to underscore and using his method of going to like really some of the root words in the the roots of the words being used, right? I mean, I tried to look them up in the BDB and stuff. It really seems that it's about making or my understanding is it's about not making images of other gods that is in the service of other gods.
That's the way I translate it. That's the way but I mean, my colleagues disagree with me on that, but that's the way I understand it. Because I'm saying Moshe Rabbeinu, he made that staff with the serpents on it and everything like that to heal the snake bites.
Yeah.
What was that?
And so it was in the service, right, at the direction of Hashem to make
Exactly.
Then it
wasn't connected to idolatry or to
it's about the graven, and it seemed to be more of a work order more than anything else. Like, don't make your living off of like carving these things.
Don't make your living off of carving statues of Zeus and selling them in the market.
It's very interesting.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
That's the way I understand. It's not a blatant prohibition against artwork.
Yeah.
That's the way I understand it. But like I said, You know, if I said this in front of my colleagues, I'd say, what are you doing with that rope? You don't need that rope. I'm not sticking my head in there.
Exactly. So I didn't think it was like a, yeah, I never took it as that. So good. That's good. Well, it is 6:22 and we're 20 minutes over, and we still have so many people here, but I think this is a good place to end. And I want to thank everyone. We're growing by leaps and bounds. So thank you for coming. You know, I hope whoever was there on the Discord for, oh God, that was so, we had so much fun. And we're going to do the Jewish Magic Festival, I think in October. We're going to have the 3rd Jewish Magic Festival, October 12th and 13th, I think. So stay tuned for more on that. I will be talking, there's going to be for sure an analysis of Shemush Tehillim and comparison between 2 different types of manuscripts. Shemush Tehillim is the book of the use of the Psalms for magical purposes. So that's going to be featured, and there's going to be a talk about harnessing the, you know, power of the Kabbalistic powers of the prophetesses. So, you know, stay tuned. We'll tell you more as things develop on that. And also, I think in March, I'll be teaching photo psychometry, which is the art of looking at photos. And I'm gonna do this through my lens of being a radiologist. You know, as a radiologist, I've had many, many years of analyzing images, and I do apply those techniques to reading tarot and you know, as well as this particular art form, which is, you know, looking at, you know, photographs and doing you know, getting information from them. So that'll be, the photo analysis will be one of the talks, I think, in March. So stay tuned and check our events calendar. And we'll also, yes, we have Kabbalah and the Tarot and the Kabbalah. We have another one coming up in March as well. Thank you for reminding me, Rabbi. Yeah.
This coming Sunday or next Sunday? What Sunday is that?
I'm not sure. We'll have to check the calendar on the event schedule. And you know, in March, I'm going to be going to Morocco, so we'll be connecting with some Moroccan Jews and mystics, Jewish mystics, and we're going to bring them aboard and talk about their experiences. We can find some. So we're going to have some interesting things happening in March as well. So yeah. All right. Good night, everyone. Thank you for coming. Blessings. Thanks for coming to Parsha.
Okay. Have a good night.